Marla drove through the winding forest road, the tires of her old car crunching on the gravel. The cabin came into view, shrouded in mist and half hidden by the tall, ancient trees surrounding it. She had inherited this place from a distant relative she never knew, and curiosity had brought her here. As she stepped onto the threshold, the heavy wooden door groaned ominously. The interior was dark and smelled of damp wood and decay. She felt a chill run down her spine as the door creaked shut behind her. Night descended quickly in the forest, and Marla found herself enveloped in darkness. As she explored the cabin, a faint whispering began to emanate from the windows. It started as a soft murmur, but gradually became clearer, almost as if voices were calling her name. She moved closer to the nearest window, her breath fogging the glass as she peered into the night. There was nothing outside but shadows and trees. She closed the curtains, but the whispers persisted, sending a cold shiver through her. Marla lit a few candles she found in a drawer, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the cabin walls. The shadows seemed to move and shift on their own, creating grotesque shapes that danced in the dim light. She felt as though unseen eyes were watching her every move. The floorboards creaked with every step, each sound amplified in the oppressive silence. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, and she found herself constantly looking over her shoulder. Her growing unease prompted Marla to leave, but when she tried the front door, it was locked tight. She pulled and tugged, but it wouldn't budge. Panic rose as she rushed to the windows, only to find them sealed shut, their latches rusted and immovable. She even tried breaking the glass, but it seemed unnaturally strong. It was as if the house had come alive, determined to keep her trapped inside. The whispers grew louder, almost mocking her efforts. In her desperate search for a way out, Marla noticed something chilling in the window glass. Faint, ghostly faces stared back at her, their eyes following her every move. She tried to convince herself it was a trick of the light, but the faces remained, growing more distinct and malevolent. She backed away, unable to escape their unblinking gazes. The cabin felt more claustrophobic than ever, the air thick with an oppressive, otherworldly presence. Exhausted and terrified, Marla remembered the back door, the one she hadn't yet tried. It looked old and worn, but the latch had a strange, otherworldly glow. She reached out, feeling a sudden warmth emanating from the metal. As her fingers touched it, a voice whispered in her ear, promising freedom if she could solve its riddle. The words were cryptic, and she struggled to make sense of them, feeling a mix of fear and hope. The latch felt hot, almost burning her skin, but she held on, determined to find a way out. With no other options, Marla twisted the glowing latch, and the door slowly creaked open. Instead of the familiar forest, she was confronted with a swirling, dark abyss. The whispers reached a crescendo, urging her to step through. Trembling, she stood at the threshold, torn between the terror of the unknown and the horror of being trapped in the haunted cabin. Summoning all her courage, she took a deep breath and stepped into the abyss, hoping it would lead her to freedom. As the darkness enveloped her, she felt a strange sense of relief, leaving the haunted cabin and its sinister secrets behind. Ethan and Lily, 14 and 12 years old respectively, always prided themselves on knowing every inch of their quirky old house. So, when a door suddenly appeared in the hallway on a rainy afternoon, they were baffled. The door was ancient, its wood weathered and its brass handle tarnished, as if it had always been there, just unnoticed. "This wasn't here yesterday," Ethan muttered, his curiosity piqued. "I would have remembered it," Lily added, a tinge of fear in her voice. Despite their unease, they felt an inexplicable pull toward it. With a shared nod, they opened the door, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. "Are you sure about this?" Lily whispered, gripping Ethan's hand tightly. "We have to know," he replied, and they stepped into the unknown, the door creaking shut behind them with a finality that sent shivers down their spines. The basement was a stark contrast to the familiar warmth of their home. Damp and cold, it smelled of mildew and decay. Their flashlight beams cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in strange, shadowy stains. "I've never seen anything like this," Lily said, her voice echoing eerily. Shadows seemed to flicker and move just out of sight, creating the unsettling illusion of being watched. Ethan found a light switch and flipped it, but the single bulb flickered weakly, casting long, distorted shadows. "Let's stick together," he suggested, trying to mask his fear. They ventured deeper, each step amplifying the feeling of being drawn into a different world entirely. As they explored the basement, whispers began to surround them, soft at first but growing louder and more insistent. "Do you hear that?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. "It's like they're trying to say something," Ethan replied, straining to make out the words. The whispers seemed to come from all directions, leading them to a hidden corner. There, an old, dust-covered mirror caught their attention, its surface vibrating with a strange energy. "What is this?" Ethan wondered aloud. As they drew closer, the whispers coalesced into a single urgent plea: "Help us." The mirror began to glow, and images from the past started to emerge, revealing a story long forgotten. The glowing mirror showed them scenes of a family from decades ago engaged in dark rituals in the very basement they stood in. Ethan and Lily watched in horrified fascination as the family's experiments went wrong, resulting in a curse that bound their spirits to the house. "This is some kind of portal," Ethan realized, his voice trembling. "But why is it here?" Lily asked, her face pale. The whispers grew louder, urging them to understand the curse and find a way to break it. "We need to dig deeper," Ethan said, determination overcoming his fear. They knew they had to uncover every detail to free the trapped souls. The house was no longer a sanctuary. Strange occurrences became daily torment, doors slamming shut, cold spots that seemed to follow them, and objects moving inexplicably. Footsteps echoed through empty hallways at night, and shadows flickered at the edge of their vision. "It's like they're trying to tell us something," Lily said, her voice shaking. Their parents dismissed their stories as childish fantasies, but Ethan and Lily knew the truth. The spirits were growing restless, their cries for help more desperate. The basement door became the center of their fears, a constant reminder of the darkness lurking below. Determined to end the haunting, Ethan and Lily prepared for one final descent into the basement. Armed with flashlights and a hastily drawn map of the symbols they had seen, they opened the door. This time, it slammed shut behind them, trapping them in the suffocating darkness. "We can't get out," Lily cried, panic rising. "Stay calm, we'll find another way," Ethan reassured her, though his own fear was palpable. As they searched for an escape, the whispers turned into agonized screams, and shadowy figures began to materialize, closing in on them. They realized they were running out of time to break the curse. With no escape in sight, Ethan and Lily knew they had to face the spirits directly. They returned to the glowing mirror, now pulsating with an intense light. "Show us what to do," Ethan demanded. The mirror revealed the final piece of the puzzle, a betrayal that had sealed the spirits' fate. "We have to set them free," Lily said, understanding the message. They performed the ritual they had seen, reciting the ancient words and lighting the candles placed around the mirror. The basement shook violently, the spirits' anguished cries filling the air. Then, as suddenly as it began, the noise ceased. The door swung open, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Ethan and Lily knew the spirits were finally at peace, and their home was safe once more. The night began innocently enough with a group of college friends, Emma, Jack, Lisa, and Mike, gathered around a campfire, sharing ghost stories. Emma, the skeptic, rolled her eyes at each tale, while Jack, the brave one, tried to spook everyone. As the moon rose high, an old man approached them, offering an eerie invitation to explore a path deep within the woods. Intrigued and slightly tipsy from the evening's fun, they decided to accept. The old man's warning echoed in their minds. Stay on the path, no matter what. Laughter and excitement quickly turned to apprehension as the forest swallowed them. The further they walked, the darker it grew until the only light was from their flashlights. Strange symbols carved into trees caught their attention, and an unsettling feeling settled over them. Jack claimed he saw something move in the shadows, but the others dismissed it as nerves. As they ventured deeper, the path became less clear, overgrown with thorny bushes and twisted roots. The temperature dropped, and a chilling breeze rustled the leaves, whispering unintelligible words. Their phones lost signal, and the realization that they were utterly alone in the forest set in. Panic began to creep in, especially when they discovered a torn piece of cloth on a branch, stained with something dark. They pressed on, determined to prove their bravery, but doubts gnawed at them. Strange, almost human-like howls echoed through the trees, growing closer with each step. Shadows seemed to dance just beyond the reach of their flashlights, and the group huddled closer together. Emma tried to rationalize the situation, but even she felt the growing dread. As they explored, they found eerie drawings on the walls and a diary on a rotting table. The diary belonged to a family who once lived there, detailing their descent into madness after strange occurrences in the woods. The last entry spoke of hearing whispers in the wind, driving them to insanity. As if on cue, the friends began to hear those same whispers, faint but unmistakable. Fear gripped them, and they realized they were not alone in the cabin. Outside, glowing eyes watched them from the tree line. Vanishing when looked at directly, the friends barricaded themselves inside, but the sense of being watched never left. Whispers grew louder, now forming almost coherent words, taunting and beckoning them. Lisa, sensitive to the paranormal, claimed to see ghostly figures moving outside. Their flashlight batteries began to die, plunging them into near darkness. The tension reached a breaking point, and arguments erupted, blaming each other for their predicament. Suddenly, a loud crash came from upstairs, making them realize they weren't alone in the cabin. Gathering what courage they had, they decided to confront whatever was haunting them. Climbing the creaky stairs, they found a room filled with old toys and children's drawings. One drawing depicted a monstrous figure dragging a family into the woods, eerily similar to their situation. As they examined the room, they felt a cold presence, and Jack was thrown against the wall by an unseen force. Panic ensued, and they raced back downstairs, but the front door wouldn't budge. The whispers turned into screams, echoing the pain and terror of the past. Desperation led them to search for another way out, discovering a trap door in the floor. With no other options, they descended into the dark, damp basement, hoping it would lead to freedom. The basement was a labyrinth of old, rusted pipes and crumbling walls. Their flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and their footsteps echoed ominously. In the far corner, they found a hidden passageway that led deeper underground. Following it, they stumbled upon a ritualistic chamber with strange markings and old, dusty books. It became clear that someone had been practicing dark magic, possibly summoning the very entities haunting them. The realization hit them that the forest was cursed, and they were now part of its dark history. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and ghostly apparitions materialized, surrounding them. With no other choice, they began to chant a passage from one of the ancient books, hoping to reverse the curse. The apparitions grew angrier, and the forest itself seemed to come alive, roots and branches reaching for them. Just as they were about to lose hope, the chanting worked, and the spirits dissipated with anguished cries. The ground stopped shaking, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly. They found a hidden exit, leading them back to the surface, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. Exhausted and traumatized, they made their way back to civilization, vowing never to speak of that night again. As they left the forest behind, they couldn't shake the feeling that the woods were still watching, waiting for the next victims.